So my name is Alma Campos. I am a Mexican-American convert. I was born and raised here in Chicago, so I've lived here pretty much all of my life. I am the daughter of an immigrant family, so I'm the firstborn, only girl in my home. And I accepted Islam I can't even tell you exactly, but it's about 25 years now. It's been a while since I've been a Muslim. So currently I am the director of admissions at an Islamic school, and I am also a co-founder of Ojalá Foundation, the Latino Muslims of Chicago, which that has really been my passion, this organization.
And so how was your life in regards to faith? What were you believing in?
Okay, so I was born and raised in a Mexican family, and typically what happens when you come from a Mexican family is we're Catholic. So the Catholic faith is really tied into the Mexican culture. So culturally, this is what I was, but religiously, we never really followed Catholicism in my home. And I remember just thinking back to my childhood, and you just brought this memory to my mind. When I was little, I must have been maybe 4 or 5. I don't even remember how old I was, but my mom would always say, like, God is watching you, God is watching you. And we had this picture of, it was a hologram. I was really scared of this hologram because I would move around and this picture would always follow me. So I was really scared of this image. But yeah, so we were raised as Catholics. And so I remember being raised just with the idea of God and never fully understanding the concept of Jesus, but just feeling like I have to believe in him. He's part of this, but it never really made sense to me. So as I was growing up, sometimes I would go to church, and I have to be honest, I never really gave the Catholic religion a lot of study, not until I became a Muslim. I think when I became a Muslim is when, not even became a Muslim. I think when I started studying Islam and really questioning a lot of these things, I started to focus a lot on what does Catholicism teach us? What is this that I am feeling like that I'm rejecting in terms of a belief system? So when I started studying Islam.
And so how did you first hear about Islam? Did you have any prejudices?
As, a conscious adult, I was actually a teenager. I was in high school. I think I was a freshman in high school. So my parents had put me into an all-girls Catholic high school. And my community school was not a very good school, so they said, okay, you're going to go to this all-girls Catholic high school. And during our time in the school, we had to attend Mass. And one of the things that you do during Mass is you do the sign of the cross. During Mass, the person sitting next to me didn't do the sign of the cross. And I was just thinking, why did she not do this? So I don't know what led up to it, but I had just realized that doing the sign of the cross always brought something bad. Like something bad simply would happen. And I don't really remember what they were, but I just kept feeling it doesn't leave me with this good feeling, or something maybe small and irrelevant. But for me, it was impactful enough to say, this is not right. I shouldn't be doing it for myself. For me, it was like, no, don't do it, please. And I didn't understand why. But when we were at Mass and this person didn't do it, I remember feeling like, oh my God, what is this? This is so strange. Why isn't she doing the sign of the cross? What does this person believe in? And that started a conversation, and she started to explain that she was Muslim. Now, at that time, we're talking like 20 plus years ago, right? She was not wearing hijab. She was not very practicing. There was nothing that would show me that she was different from any of us. But that conversation opened up my eyes to there's other religions out there. And she ended up to be one of my best friends while we were in high school. And we would have some very deep conversations about religion. And she started to introduce the things that she believed in. She would start to talk to me about the oneness of God. The position that Jesus has within this religion. And we would talk about the afterlife, which was a curiosity that I had had since forever. We would talk about, the creation of the world. And we would talk about different prophetic stories. And that was a big one, different prophetic stories. Because the way that she presented any prophetic story, it was so clean and so pure. And it was just a beautiful story. Something that you would say, oh, I could look up to this person. I started to realize that innately the things that I had believed in since I was a child really fell into the things that she was telling me.
So it was not like the stories that you heard in the Bible.
Right. And again, I didn't really study the Bible, but when you're a teenager, you want to take the things that are going to be like contradicting. What is it going to, anything that felt that was going to be a contradiction or something that you could question, that would stick out in your mind. And I remember hearing some of the stories and the way they were presented about some of these prophets and just feeling like, wow, but if that was a prophet, those things are pretty deep, to paint them in that light. Is it true? Is it not true? Why would they be chosen if that was a truth? And if they're here to guide us, why were they really sent here? What was this message they were trying to share with us? It was a lot of those questions that I had. Yeah. But the biggest question for me, the big one was God, the concept of God. Like all of these little things, they were important, but not as important as God.
How did it feel like when you were told the concept of God in Islam?
When I was told the concept of God in Islam, for me, it was so powerful to know that everything I had believed in, just naturally believed in, had a place. When I was a child, it was like, this is how I believe, but this is what we are. And it doesn't fit. It doesn't go with this. But I have to still be Catholic. But it just never fit. So it took me to a place where I understood that there's more that I have to study and learn and whatnot, because this wasn't the only option that we had, or the only option that existed, I should say. I was just trying to be part of the group because of the family I was born into, my cultural background and stuff like that.
So then how did your journey towards Islam begin?
I never thought that this was my journey. You're just living life. You're just a kid. And those conversations slowly but surely led me to learn a little bit more. I wanted to find out and discover a little bit more. And it was a long journey for me. I wasn't someone who, like, mashallah, they hear and they take shahada. This is amazing. For me, it was a lot of questioning and investigating and confirming for myself. What is true? What is not true? How did the Bible get put together? What happened here? Where is the disconnect? Oh, now the Bible is making sense because the Quran made sense and put this piece together for me. And, but at the end, I always kept coming back to Islam and what I was learning. And as a young kid, because again, I was in high school. So life just takes you in different directions. And I kept finding myself thinking, well, again, I'm Mexican. I was born into my beautiful family. This is who we are. That's who you are. So it's great. It's beautiful. I respect it. I believe it, but this is for you guys. This is us. My mind was kind of closing that option of having that be something for me. I don't know why, but it just was closing that as an option for me. And that happened for many years. So when I got into college and, you're in college, you're just being young again. I found myself always revisiting this idea of Islam. I found myself defending Islam, defending the Muslims. And when people would say negative things about it, I would say, like, wait a second, hold on. Have you met any Muslims? Have you read the Quran? Do you know anything about this? But again, I didn't know that it would ever be for me.
So then, what was the main thing that convinced you that Islam is the truth and you decided to take shahada? What happened that you decided?
I can't say that there was one determining moment where I discovered or where I said to myself, this is the truth. I think it was a journey for me. So for me, I was discovering myself. I was growing. You're at that time in your life because I was, a teenager in my early 20s during that time. And you're growing. You're trying to find yourself, who you are and this and that. And at the same time, I was discovering this beautiful religion. And without even consciously being aware, I was falling in love with this religion. And it's something I didn't know. I found myself studying it and I realized at one point that it's been penetrating in my heart. And it wasn't one thing that happened and I said, oh, this is the truth. It was by the time I realized I was in love with this Islam. This is my journey, how it happened with me.
And then what happened that you decided to become Muslim?
So becoming Muslim, after many years of studying it on my own, I was pretty private about the way that I was studying Islam. I had a lot of Muslim friends who were not practicing, and one thing that I really respected about them is that even though they were not practicing, they were very clear about saying what is right and what is wrong within their religion. They wouldn't try to justify any mistakes that they were making. And this for me, I was like, I really respect that. I respect that they're so firm on what they believe, even if it's against themselves. So for me, I was impressed by that. And I would study it a lot on my own. I was reading the Quran and reading whatever I could get my hands on privately. Again, it was like a very personal journey for me. And it wasn't a journey that I thought was going to lead me to be a Muslim. It was a journey of something I was just interested in at the time. So what happened was one night I was sleeping and I remember just getting this anxiety about where did I place my Quran? And it was strange because I don't get anxiety like that, but I was just wondering, where did I place this Quran? And it was half in English, half in Arabic. But for me, it was a holy book. I realized like this is a holy book. And I remember that it was placed in a box and those boxes were in the basement. So I just felt this urge, like I have to go and dig it out. It can't be there, just out of respect, whatever it was, I don't know. And in the middle of the night, I went to the basement. I started going through all these boxes. I pulled this Quran and I brought it upstairs. Then I said, maybe it's time for me to start finding some more information, finding a class or something, just to revisit this idea of Islam. And I coordinated with a friend of mine to go to the masjid. It was a Saturday or Sunday morning. We said we're going to go to the masjid. So that morning, subhanallah, like if anything was ever going to change my life, it was that day. So that morning, we step into the masjid and there was a man that was there. I don't know who he is, but I always make so much dua for this person because I believe he has passed on. But we just asked him, I'm looking for some classes, anything. Do you have something to learn about Islam? And we started a conversation and he started asking me, what do I know about Islam? So I started to tell him I've been studying it for a while. I've been fasting now for a couple of years. I mean, my way, right? It wasn't the best way, but I was trying to fast. And I had already by that time stopped eating pork. I had stopped anything that had alcohol in it. And so I was implementing all of these little things as I was learning just because they made sense to me. It seemed like the right thing to do and I would do it. So then he started asking me the articles of faith. He started asking me, do you believe in the one God? Do you believe that Jesus is a prophet? Do you believe in Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? And I kept answering yes to everything. And so that's when he asked me, why haven't I took shahada? And again, this is the first time that I recall or that I accepted this question from somebody. And I didn't know why. And so then he pretty much told me something that remained with me till this day, is something that I tell people. We don't know what tomorrow might bring. We don't know what could happen to us once we leave this room. If you believe, and this isn't like saying I agree with what Islam says or I think that this is part of the Muslim faith. If this is what you believe, then to not declare the shahada is denying your creator, right? So immediately I understood, wow, I believe in this. Like, it's in my heart. I know that I believe this. And to not do it is to say, like, I'm rejecting my creator. I'm rejecting God. And that was very powerful for me. Like, I felt I couldn't do that. I think in that moment, I fully understood that what I was going to do and this journey didn't involve anybody else. It was not about any other person. It was me and God, my creator, Allah, and this contract that I was about to sign with him, this agreement, this testification that I was saying, it was for him. It was me telling him, I believe in you. I believe in you, and you've led me in this journey and it led me to this moment, and I don't have a choice. So I went and I took my shahada, and it was a beautiful moment that I didn't really value until much later. And that's when my journey began as a Muslim.
So how did you feel when you took your shahada? Can you take us to those moments?
Oh my goodness. I think it didn't fully sink in at that moment, everything that I was about to embark in. But taking shahada for me at that time was crucial. I was young. I was still a college student. I had so many different ideas of what should I do with my life? What should I study? What do I want as a career? What do I want to do? When would I want to get married? Which I had no intention of getting married anytime soon. Having children, not anytime soon. Absolutely not becoming a Muslim all of a sudden. But I was at that cross point where lifelong decisions had to be made for me. I had to decide my future goals, and I was very confused. I didn't know what to do, where I was going to end up tomorrow. It was a lot of that going on in my mind. And the moment I took shahada, subhanAllah, it's only Allah who could do that. But all the pieces of my life, they just came together. Everything just came together.
How did your family and the people around react?
After taking shahada, I wasn't sharing with everybody that I was a Muslim. I didn't mind if people found out, if they knew, that was fine with me. But especially in those early stages of my conversion, I wasn't out telling people I was a Muslim. So I didn't share that with my family at all. One of the reasons why I didn't do that, and I think for some of us it's important, that we have to find the strength within ourselves, especially if you are by yourself. You need to figure out who you are in this religion and, strengthen yourself in what you know before you engage in these conversations. And personally, I didn't want to have any debates. Like, I didn't want people to give me these opinions and telling me that it was wrong or that why did I do this, or all of these questions that were going to come out of love. You know, they were probably going to ask me this because they love me, they care about me, they were worried. This was so new to them, but I knew what I was doing. And like I said before, this was something very much between me and God, and I didn't want anybody else to come in the way of that. I felt at the end of the day, I'm going to be standing in front of my Creator with what I just did and the actions that are going to follow this. And nobody else is going to have any role in that. So I didn't tell anybody. Also, maybe I was a little scared, to tell people. But the way my family found out, I don't think they remember this, but I remember. We all went out to dinner. And we were sitting in this restaurant, and I'm the only girl in my home. So I'm the eldest only girl. So for my dad, I'm his little girl. And they were talking about my wedding. So my dad was saying when Alma gets married and this beautiful church and walking her down the aisle. And it was a lot of these plans that my dad had for my wedding. So I was very quiet, and I was just, enjoying my meal, just very quiet, letting them have that conversation. Then my mom turns around and said, that's not going to happen. And so my dad obviously reacted, and he said, why would that not happen? And she said, because your daughter's Muslim. So I started eating a little bit faster. She saw me praying. I think she saw me praying in my room, and then she made the connection that I had already taken my shahada and became a Muslim. But I think they thought it was a phase for a long time. And again, maybe because of my age and just who I was at the time, when I was passionate about something, and this was one of those things, I became very protective. So I defended my religion. I was scared to lose my religion. I was scared to lose what I had just found. So they were very respectful of the choices that I had made. They didn't understand it, but they're my family. And a lot of times we ask when somebody takes shahada, how's your family reacting? How are they treating you? How is it going at home? And subhanAllah, now that I've been Muslim for so long and looking back, I think it's very important to ask, how are you being with your family? How are you bringing Islam into their life? How are you representing Islam to them? Because they love you and they're scared, maybe. They might think that you're just taking a completely different path. And that is something I reflect on now, because I wasn't the best example at that time, but I'm doing better.
So how did your father react?
So I'll say they were okay. They thought it might be a phase. They were fine. They were trying to see how Islam might change me, what was going to be different about me after becoming a Muslim. I think most of the changes that they saw were positive, so they were okay with that. But then I decided I'm going to sell my business and move to the Middle East so that I could study. And I don't know how I did it. I really don't know how I put that on my parents. I cannot imagine my kids doing that to me, or, how brave I was to have done that at that time. But I said, this is a time when I can do this. Financially, I could do it. The business I was engaged in, I was partnered with a mortgage broker, and I understood that riba was haram, so I had to get out of that business. So I had figured, okay, they could buy me out. I'll have the money so that I could travel and live out there and find myself, because I also wanted to disconnect from my life here. I wanted to be by myself and discover myself and find this religion in a way that was going to fit me, so then when I was going to make that journey, that was difficult for them. They found that to be a difficult part. They were very scared for me to go. I didn't know people, I didn't speak the language. We had never traveled. We didn't have FaceTime. You had to send a letter, and it was like 2 weeks before you got the letter. And phone calls were like, you use a little calling card. Now that I look back, when I was reading into Islam, I'm sure that anytime I came across a page discussing hijab, I would just flip that page. Like, I didn't want to know. It was something that I didn't want to do. It was something that was so foreign to everything that I had known as myself. Like, nobody in my family ever wore hijab. Hijab was just very, very far from anything I ever wanted to do at that time. And this happened for a while. I tried to dress more modest, more long sleeves and this and stuff. That was relatively easy. I have to admit, after taking shahada, I did go through my wardrobe and got rid of a lot of my clothes. And the reason I did that is because I recognized the weakness inside of me. So I knew this is something I had to do. It should not be available to me anymore. So I was trying to change my wardrobe. But putting something on my head was very difficult. It was the concept, the idea of it was very difficult for me. And it took me a while. After studying more and more about Islam, I had to really reflect on why I had this rejection for hijab. I had to really reflect, why was I so against the idea of even learning about it? I don't want to hear about it. I don't want to hear examples about it. Why was it so strong in me? And I came to the conclusion that this was something in me. It wasn't my religion. It wasn't Islam that was doing something wrong or oppressive or unjust. Because at that time, my mind would only understand that it is oppressive. It's not nice. You're asking me to cover because of a man so that they can lower their gaze. Let them learn to lower their gaze. My idea was just, you're asking me to do this for somebody else? That's not fair. And why are all of these Muslim brothers walking around with nothing that identifies them as Muslim? There's nothing. I won't know that they're Muslim, but you want me to wear the hijab? I had that. So after some time I started studying and just reading into it very privately because I wanted nobody's input or any pressure into wearing my hijab. And I don't remember what it was exactly, but I know there was a lecture that I had listened to. And it really convinced me when I understood I'm not wearing it for anybody else except because Allah is asking me to do this. And if everything that I have researched and looked into so far has made sense, has had a point, has been there for good, then why am I not going to do this? I should do that. And I decided that the day that I would travel to Jordan, again, separating myself from this community and my society, was going to be the day that I would start wearing hijab. And that is what I did. And for a while, I had this imposter syndrome, right? Like, I'm in somebody else's clothing. I am not who I am. And I would look at the different ways that different cultures would wear the hijab. And I would just feel like, but I'm not Arab. But I'm not this-y. But I'm not this. And it's been a very long journey for me. So I started wearing it only to please Allah. Only to please Allah. Understanding there is good in this for me. And after I started wearing it, that's when I really saw how impactful it has been in my life. So I understood the way that I would engage in conversations, the way that people would engage me, the way it protected me. And I could say nothing, since I became a Muslim.
Did you ever encounter any hardship because of your headscarf?
I think as somebody who wears a headscarf, I definitely have. So it's funny, for a man that is a Muslim, there's nothing that really identifies you as a Muslim. So you can navigate life like nothing. For me personally, I've had a couple situations because of my headscarf that I could say, okay, this is why you targeted me. But alhamdulillah, nothing too big of an issue. So there's one time when I was in Mexico, I was traveling with my family. And it was my parents, my kids, my husband. We were all just doing the touristy things in Mexico City. And we came to this building. And I was telling my mom, there's so much history in Mexico related to Islam. Like, Muslims did come here. Muslims were part of the people that were building this. We were going through all of that. And I was telling her, but our history has been denied and whatnot. So we get to this building. It's a government building. And I'm wearing hijab. So the man tells me, well, you can't come in. You have to take that off. So obviously I said, I can't. This is a religious wear. How am I supposed to take it off? And he says, I'm sorry, you can't come in. You have to take it off. No hats, no this, no that. And so my immediate response was like, do you believe in Mary? And then he said, yeah. So I was like, hello, remember Mary? I'm dressing like Mary and you're not going to let me in? And then he was like, okay, just go in and go.
As a woman who has accepted Islam, do you think that this religion devalues women?
As a woman who accepted Islam, does this religion devalue women? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. And I understand that people might feel that way or might have that perception of it. But when you really study this religion and you see the way that it honors women, I think that for me, I was completely impressed by that. I was taken back to understand the way that women were treated, even at the time of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Obviously starting at the time of our Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And culturally, I think right now we're seeing a lot of this with, I think we're seeing Islam in a better light right now with everything that is going on in Gaza. And you're seeing the way that men truly do behave in difficult situations, the way that they do protect their family, their women, their children, their community, the softness in them, right? And you see the role of the woman as well. So before coming to Islam, I absolutely had this misconception that it was a religion that oppressed women. And after studying it and living it, I can guarantee that it is not.
Many people think that when you become Muslim, you'll become an Arab. You'll change your name, change your clothing, change your tradition.
Oh my goodness,
yeah. So is it possible to stick to your culture and be Muslim at the same time? Can you be a Mexican Muslim?
Yes. Okay, so I think that one of the big misconceptions that people have had is that when you embrace Islam, you're becoming an Arab or you're becoming some other cultural makeup that isn't yours. And I'll be honest, when I first came to Islam, which was like over 20 years ago, I didn't find any revert Muslims, any converts, any Latino Muslims at that time. And it was very difficult for me then. Now it is so different. It is so different. Times have changed. I think with social media and the different platforms and groups and exposure of Islam, we understand that you don't have to be Arab. You don't have to be Desi. You don't have to be Russian. You can be exactly who you are, wherever you're coming from, and be a Muslim. It was sent down for humanity, and that includes you. Personally, that journey for me at that time was a little bit difficult. And I remember feeling like I'm the only convert ever. Nobody else is a convert. Nobody else is a revert. And I was looking at that time to find somebody who understood my journey, understood my questions, understood my hardships, understood, what I was going through, my whole experience, and I couldn't find it. And I feel that a lot of people who have accepted Islam, way back or years back, probably went through that. And that's why you see so many organizations and groups and convert supporting groups, again, like Ohala Foundation, which is something that we started because we needed it ourselves and we wanted to, fill that need for others that were coming into Islam. But right now, I think that, alhamdulillah, people finally understand that Islam